Hey everyone, my name is Brandon Trinalange, founder of Altitude University, and thank you for tuning in to this free webinar. I just want to quickly mention that this is a pre-recorded webinar, which means it is not live, and there is a reason for that. I've done a bunch of live webinars in the past and realized in each of them that I'm so focused on delivering the valuable training that I'm not able to stop the presentation to address each of your questions individually. So instead, this presentation is recorded, which allows me to be available right now in the chat box to answer any of your questions. You can get started by letting me know where you're tuning in from. And of course, feel free to drop in any other questions as we go. Let me give you a quick overview of the training on today's agenda. First, I'll be answering the question that I usually get asked most, which is how I got started as an entrepreneur in the drone industry, what processes I've used to build successful drone businesses in the past. Next, we'll be talking about what Altitude University is, why I started it, and how it has been able to help thousands of people make money flying drones. We'll get into the core of this webinar, which will be focused on walking you through a proven step-by-step guide to building a profitable drone business yourself. After that, if you guys are okay with it, because I'm giving away so much free value in this training, I'm going to be making an exclusive offer at the end for anyone interested in taking the next step in getting their Part 107 drone license. To close the training, I'll be giving you access to my private Facebook group, and I'll be answering a list of my most frequently asked questions. I've had thousands of people watch this webinar, and I've written down the most asked questions, to which I'll be answering at the end. Before we dive into the exhilarating journey of becoming a drone pilot and potentially starting your own profitable drone business, let me answer a few questions up front. First, who is this training for? The training is going to be focused towards beginner to intermediate drone pilots that are in the early stages of starting a drone business. But it can also be for anyone looking to use drones as a side hustle with the goal of making some extra money on the weekends. Basically, anyone that's looking to improve their drone skills or add another source of income. Second, how long is the training going to be? The training is going to be 45 minutes long, and no, I will not just be pitching my product the entire time, as I'm sure you've seen others do. In fact, I don't even sell anything at the moment that will teach you how to build a drone business. These are just fundamentals and best practices that I've learned from personal experience over the years of building six-figure drone businesses from scratch. I've even had some students say that they've learned more in this free webinar training than they did from spending $600 to $700 on in-person drone training seminars. So make sure you're ready to take notes, because we're going to be cruising through this material. So without further ado, let's begin the training. So here's a quick look at some of my favorite properties that being a full-time drone pilot has taken me. One of the best parts of the job is that you're in a new and innovative industry that most people are not familiar with. You're able to pitch ideas and use technology that some never thought was possible. Some of the corporations I've worked with in the past include Cushman & Wakefield, Coastal Premier Properties, Syngenta, Brightview Development Company, the Irvine Company, and even I've collaborated with NASA and Caltech's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I've worked with professional athletes, including some that currently ride for Monster Energy, and have even competed in multiple X Games. So these are just a few things I would have never experienced had I not learned the skills I'm about to teach you. So if there's nothing you take away from this training, at least take away the confidence knowing that if you apply the things I'm teaching today, it'll give you the insight to leverage drone technology and work with companies similar to the ones I've listed. So first off, a little bit about myself. I'm 22 years old and I grew up in San Diego, California. A little over 5 years ago, I was playing varsity lacrosse at Torrey Pines High School. And as a side hustle, I would string my teammates' lacrosse sticks to save up some money for what I thought would take my college recruiting video to the next level. In my head, I had this dream to play college lacrosse at the highest level, and I needed something that would differentiate my recruiting video from the thousands of other videos college scouts get sent on a monthly basis. So after stringing sticks all season, I saved up enough money to buy a drone for the lacrosse team, where I was one of the first athletes in Southern California to have aerial shots in game highlight videos. On the weekends, I would take my drone and fly it over the new houses being built in the community where I lived. With over 400 new homes being built, I was able to capture an aerial perspective every weekend, showing the progress of the development and eventually sold those progress photos to the construction company and the local agents on those listings. From there, I landed a few small listings, and one of my friend's parents actually heard about the work I was doing and hired me to take aerial pictures for all of her listings for about $500. For the first 2 weeks, I worked on capturing the best pictures I could. I had my friends who were skilled in Photoshop actually edit those images for me. I emailed the final photos over, received my first payment from a happy client, and she informed me that other agents in her office actually appreciated the work I was doing and were interested in hiring me for their upcoming listings. For 2 years, I worked on projects after school and on the weekends until my business partner Miles and I were consistently working with some of the top residential real estate agents in Southern California. From there, we expanded to commercial real estate and opened up another branch of Altitude in Arizona, where we hired some of our friends to close deals and fly drones in their area. With the launch of the FAA's Part 107 rules and regulations, the applications for drones were quickly expanding. There was a huge need in the market for drones that could collect data in industries like golf course management, construction and development, agriculture, and many others. This is where things started to get good. Well, kind of. We had saved up enough money to buy some better drones like the Inspire 2, Matrice series, and even some fixed wing surveying drones. But the problem was, as soon as this new equipment arrived, I realized we had no idea how to use it. So I spent the next few months searching the internet for online training, watching tutorial videos on YouTube about the technology, and scanning the FAA's website with the hopes of teaching myself how to do everything. I'm sure a bunch of you guys have been in that same position where you spend hours looking for the perfect tutorial and you finally find the one that looks promising, but then it's 30 minutes long and you're lucky to get even 30 seconds of useful information from it. Huge waste of time. I know how it is, and that's actually one of the reasons I started Altitude University, because I wanted to give drone pilots an alternative to expensive in-person training, which will cost you thousands of dollars for them just to tell you when you get there that they're gonna spend the next 3 days preparing you to get your drone license, which takes up half the seminar, and then they never actually tell you how to start a profitable drone business. Why? Because there are so many industries. You need such expensive drones and training with instructors that basically just sell you expensive marketing packages where they'd be happy to build your website for you, but they won't teach you how to build a profitable drone business. We'll talk more about this later, but the point is I've been where you guys are and I know how frustrating it can be. What I've found is the regulations keep changing, and the full-time drone pilots with real-world experience haven't sat down to create in-depth course curriculum that will prepare you to enter the drone industry once you've received your license. It took me months of watching outdated drone tutorials and learning from my own mistakes to get me to the point where I was actually comfortable creating a list of services that I could provide with my drone and then charging a fee for it. Then one project came around that really allowed me to make a name for myself. It was located in Irvine, California, and I noticed that no one was flying drones on a project that was being developed on over 250 acres of land. The civil engineers and project managers were having to walk the entire construction site on foot, using pen and paper to document progress. This happened around the time I was looking into the other capabilities of drones, which I realized could dramatically improve the accuracy and the speed at which construction projects were actually completed. By mounting professional-grade cameras and other surveying equipment to the drone, it would dramatically improve survey times, site visibility, progress reporting, and even their entire inspection process. I was looking at the size and scope of this construction project for the team that they had, and immediately recognized my drone services as an opportunity. This is just something to note. Be confident in yourself and take an opportunity when it presents itself. Although I was still pretty new to this side of the technology, I knew enough to provide some initial value to their operation, and most importantly, I was willing to learn along the way. We ended up working with their team for over 8 months, doing consistent aerial surveys of their construction site on a weekly basis. This next part will make a little bit more sense when you understand that those tiny DJI flying machines that you have in your room or your office right now are capable of way more than you think. To put it simply, my team and I would create a flight path for the drone over the construction site using an application similar to something like Drone Deploy. The drone would take off and capture a large number of high-resolution photos over the site. These images overlap at different points so that a small percentage of each picture has the same point on the ground visible in both of them. We would then stitch these images together to create a high-resolution 3D map. It contains elevation data, but it also shows textures and shapes for every point on the map. All of the images the drone captured got stitched together to create a 3D map of the construction site. This map can then be turned into a 3D model to show contours and topographic information, which to a project manager reveals the lay of the land. In the end, they have access to their entire construction site with extreme accuracy right at their fingertips. So besides allowing them to make better business decisions, we would actually work with their civil engineers to export these maps into file types that would allow them to alter the models in the engineering softwares that they were building the blueprints in. In the end, we got to the point where they would use our maps and models to do volumetric calculations of the dirt on site, report generation, and tracking of site progress. They could even improve communication with our live annotations, track earthwork progress visually, reduce surveying times, and most importantly, keep workers on site safe by limiting the time needed to do dangerous jobs. But we didn't stop there. Another key to our success was continue learning and growing with your clients. This is where things shifted. One day I was approached by an executive at a similar construction company. He mentioned that he was impressed with the growth and efficiency we had helped his team achieve, but he was worried that we might move on to other opportunities before his project was complete. He told me his site would not be complete for another 2 years and wanted to know if there was a chance he could hire us to slowly train his team to continue to use drones to capture the data themselves. We looked at the length and the scope of the project, and he was right. We were working with a ton of different clients at the time, constantly traveling, and to be on his site flying every week for the next 2 years probably wasn't going to happen. This was our light bulb moment. We took this opportunity to build a training program specifically designed to help their team acquire their FAA drone pilot's license, which is the first step to starting any business using drones. Essentially, the Federal Aviation Administration requires anyone who will be getting paid to fly drones or receiving any type of monetary compensation for drone services must have a remote pilot certificate, otherwise known as a Part 107 drone license. So after taking their team of civil engineers through the program, we helped all of them receive their remote pilot certificate and assisted them in building their own drone department. In a nutshell, I've learned what it takes to leverage drones for a variety of different industries. There is a lot of money to be made flying drones, but you need to start somewhere. I'm going to be showing you the fundamentals to building an aerial real estate photography business so that you can have some fun, build a portfolio to gain new clients, and make a consistent income flying drones. It's taken me years to acquire this knowledge, and the reason I had to take this route was because I, like many of you, did not have the option to spend thousands of dollars on seminars and in-person drone training. So that's just a quick look at how Altitude came about, and we'll talk more about the full drone licensing program at the end, which I eventually made into a full course and opened up to the public after helping those civil engineers get certified. But what I want to do now is dive into my top 10 secrets to starting a profitable drone business and give you as much free training as I can in our remaining time. We're going to be discussing some basic camera equipment. Most of you guys are beginner to intermediate drone pilots, and this will be an overview of choosing the correct drone at any skill level. We've aggregated a list we recommend for those interested in learning more about the technology. Now, I understand many of you might currently own a drone, but there are a lot of people out there just getting started. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break down a list of beginner drones, and then I'm gonna move into some intermediate drones, and then I'll give you my insight on some advanced drones and whether or not it's worth it to upgrade your current equipment. After years of flying everything from quadcopters to fixed wing drones, I found the most helpful question is to ask yourself, what will you be using it for? Keep your answer in mind as we go through this list. If you've seen anyone flying a drone in public, chances are you've seen a DJI drone. Now, I'm not advocating that you should only look into DJI drones because it's important to do your own research before making an investment like this. However, DJI owns 70% market share of the drone industry for a reason. These are all drones that I use and have used for years. They're reliable and well made with some of the most advanced camera technology on the market. And I've personally had some of these drones for over 4 years without a single problem. First, we have the DJI Spark, which is going to be a smaller size drone that you can literally fit right in your back pocket. This is a great drone for beginners and perfect for the basic user looking to get started flying a small, easy to use and responsive drone for fun. The average flight time on a DJI Spark is around 16 minutes on a single battery. What that means is you can save money by purchasing a drone of this size and then use the extra savings to purchase some other batteries. A common practice is flying for the 16-minute time period, landing the drone, switching out the batteries, and then taking off while repeating that process on projects that may require a few extra batteries. A key feature on the drone is the camera, which features a 2-axis mechanical gimbal that acts kind of like a Steadicam in light to moderate winds. On the front of the drone, we have some obstacle avoidance sensors that'll notify you when approaching something directly in your flight path. Provided you are in GPS mode, this drone will stop for you when you're approaching an obstacle, even if you're pressing down on the gas sticks. This is super helpful and will come in handy when you least expect it, literally. In the back of the drone, you have the micro USB port and the micro USB card slot. If you guys are familiar with drones, you'll know that your photos and videos will be saved to a micro SD card, which is basically a smaller version of a typical SD card. I'd suggest using an SD card with about 16 to 36 gigabytes of storage, which will give you more than enough storage when filming in the highest quality. This camera has a 12 megapixel sensor for photography, which will give you the ability to capture some incredible aerial photos. And when it comes to video, the drone films in 1080p at 30 frames per second. Another great feature of this drone is the ability to charge it via USB, which is super helpful when you're traveling. The price point for this drone right now is about $299, so all in all, this drone is going to be great for someone who doesn't want to spend too much money but also wants a portable solution. Next up, we have the DJI Mavic Mini, which is going to be actually one of the newer drones on the market and definitely one of the smallest. Now, some important information about this drone. If you live in the United States or another country with similar rules, there are going to be some regulations that you'll need to be familiar with. One of them is that you're required by law to register your drone if it's above 250 grams or 0.55 pounds. Believe it or not, this drone comes in at a weight of 249 grams, which is 1 gram less than the regulation requires, making it exempt from registration. Now, this is a good and a bad thing if you think about it. Some people take that exemption and they think that since they don't have to register the drone with the FAA, that they can just fly it anywhere in any airspace over people at night without a waiver. And the truth is, none of that is correct or legal for that matter. Being that it is 249 grams, yes, technically you don't need to register the drone. However, if you are flying drones commercially, which all of you watching this will be, the aircraft must be registered. So right away, you'll still need to register the drone. If you're flying drones commercially in the United States, you will need to fly under the Part 107 regulations, which is basically a group of rules that are set in place specifically for drone pilots. We'll dive deeper into what that means in the next step, but for now, let's dive into the drone itself. On first glance, you'll notice the drone has retractable propeller arms, which allow it to easily fold up and fit in a backpack or a camera bag. It's extremely lightweight while being equipped with a great camera, which makes it more comparable to some of the larger, more cinematic drones we'll talk about shortly, as opposed to something like the DJI Spark that we just talked about. Something that the DJI Spark has that this drone does not is the obstacle avoidance. If you remember from the last drone we talked about, it has the forward sensing obstacle avoidance, which helps if you're a beginner drone pilot. The camera on board films in 2.7K at 30 frames per second. And one thing I found extremely impressive is the range. The DJI Mavic Mini can comfortably hit over a mile in range. Super great for a drone that's priced at $399. The flight time on this drone is 30 minutes with one battery, and I've had some friends confirm that their average flight time is between 22 and 26 minutes flying to its full capacity. Now we're getting into some drones that are at the beginner to intermediate level. The Mavic Pro is not the latest DJI drone on the market, it's actually one of the first drones of the Mavic series. So nowadays the price point is a little bit more competitive for the quality of the drone you're getting. Even today, it 100% still competes with other drones on the market, and it's one that I recommend to friends and family as a beginner to intermediate drone on a budget. With a flight time of 27 minutes, you're able to get in a few extra minutes of fun with this drone compared to the smaller DJI drones like the Spark and the Mavic Air. This drone comes equipped with what's called flight autonomy, and it's just another way to say obstacle avoidance. While you're flying, it uses the front sensors and the bottom sensor to create a 3D scan of the environment in real time so that it can avoid any potential obstacles approaching in the flight path. It can detect obstacles up to 49 feet ahead of the drone and uses 5 sensors, including the main camera, to do so. For the size of this drone, you're going to have an incredibly stable 3-axis gimbal and a camera that can capture 4K video at 30 frames per second. The Active Track Intelligence System has 3 saved flight modes built into the drone so that you can use them when flying. Let's take a look at these 3 flight modes. The first one is called Trace Mode, which allows you to click a button and have the drone follow behind, in front of, or actually circle a subject as it's moving. The second flight mode is called Profile, which allows you to fly alongside a person or a moving object from a set distance. And the third one is called Spotlight Mode, which allows you to keep the camera on the subject, but then allows you to maneuver the drone as you'd like while that camera stays fixated on the subject. The most important facet of this drone is that it's the first drone we've talked about so far that has the capabilities to be used for surveying and mapping. When I was first getting started in construction surveying, I actually used this drone as a low-cost solution to survey the construction site and create 3D maps and models of the terrain for my clients. For around $1,000, this drone will be your greatest asset when transitioning from aerial photography to other use cases like construction management. Next up, we'll be talking about some newer drones on the market, like the Mavic series that includes the Mavic 2 Pro and the Mavic 2 Zoom. In reality, this is just the Mavic 2 drone with 2 different camera options because apart from the camera, the Pro and the Zoom are actually identical. The price point of these 2 drones comes in at around $1,500. The Zoom is around $1,200, but that brings me to my next point. The Mavic 2 Pro's camera has a 1-inch sensor, which is absolutely crazy. That's 4 times larger than the image sensor on the Mavic 2 Zoom. So let's do a quick comparison. The flight performance of these 2 drones is exactly the same. So the majority of the comparison is going to be in the cameras. Both can fly for up to 31 minutes and have a max speed of 48 miles per hour. They both have the capability to shoot 4K video, and they also share similar intelligent flight features like hyperlapse and Active Track 2.0. So what's the difference? As you've been hearing me say, the Mavic 2 Pro has one of the most impressive cameras on a drone this size. And the reason DJI, a drone manufacturer, was able to produce a camera this good was due to their partnership with Hasselblad, a camera manufacturer. This 1-inch sensor captures detail and quality in 20 megapixel resolution. The ISO can actually go up to 12,800, which if you're into DSLRs, that means it performs really well in low light situations. Their collaboration allowed them to develop a custom solution for natural and more accurate colors. Basically, the Mavic 2 Zoom that we spoke about earlier is able to record 16 million colors. And with this new Hasselblad color solution, the Mavic 2 Pro can record over 1 billion colors. So overall, the Mavic 2 Pro is a solid drone for photography at the highest level. That's it for this drone. Hopefully you have a better understanding of the DJI Mavic 2 Pro versus the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom. In my opinion, this is one of the best beginner to intermediate drones that you can purchase for around $1,500 and will be your greatest asset when starting your drone business. So once you've chosen the right drone, and a perfect segue into the next step of our guide, it's very important to figure out where, when, and what missions you can legally fly to avoid large fines and ensure safety. So in this step of our guide to making money flying drones and starting a profitable drone business, we have by far the most important chapter to understand: getting licensed and registering your drone. I'll be walking you through what license you'll need to fly drones legally in the United States and the process of registering your drone to become fully compliant in all 50 states. If you haven't figured it out by now, you will need a license to fly drones commercially. This is anything outside of flying drones for hobby or recreational purposes. Now you guys want to make money flying drones, so you will need to get your drone license. The good news is it's not as hard as you think, and it will give you an immediate competitive advantage as a drone pilot. Professionals in any field will not even consider hiring someone to take aerial photos if they are not licensed. Here's some background. As of August 29th, 2016, the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, made a rule that states anyone who will be making money flying drones or otherwise receiving any type of compensation for flying drones will need to hold what's called a remote pilot's license. I'll be referring to this as a Part 107 license as we go through the details. So what's the process of getting your drone license? To qualify to become a Part 107 pilot, you must first be at least 16 years old. You must be able to read, speak, write, and understand English, and you must be in physical and mental condition to safely operate a small drone. Most importantly, you must pass the initial in-person written exam at an FAA-approved testing center. If you're wondering, there is no flight proficiency exam, just a written exam. There are over 800 testing centers in the United States, so after you prepare to take the exam, you'll schedule it at a testing center in your area, which is most likely down the street at a local airport or flight school. And then once you pass, you'll receive the FAA Part 107 drone license in the mail. Super simple and really similar to any other accredited certification you've received in the past. The next question I always get asked is, how hard is the exam and how do you even prepare for it? First, you'll need to understand how it's structured and what type of questions you'll see on the exam. The exam is 60 questions in multiple choice format, with 3 options to choose from, either A, B, or C. To pass, you must receive a score of 70% or better. In other words, you have to get 42 out of the 60 questions right to become an FAA certified pilot. Here's a breakdown of the questions by category. We have regulations between 15 to 25%, airspace and requirements 15 to 25%, weather 11 to 16% of the test, loading and performance 7 to 11%, and operations coming in at 35 to 45% of the exam. Now I know this is brand new information for a lot of you and will definitely take some focus and studying like any other certification you've received in the past. If you're wondering how you should prepare to get your drone license and confidently enter the drone industry, my team and I have created an online Part 107 test prep course that'll allow you to study, schedule, and pass the drone license exam. Here's a breakdown of the course curriculum and a description of each learning objective you'll need to be familiar with to become a drone pilot. So Module 1 is going to be the introduction. The first module is an introduction to Altitude University and the team that powers it. It explains the experience our team has from helping thousands of students become certified drone pilots, and it lets you know that you can reach out to us at any time while going through the material. Module 2 is going to be on regulations and FAA standards. So there are a few best practices you should know as a remote pilot in command, including documents that you should have during your operation on site, and the process of acquiring waivers and authorizations that you can apply for after you receive your Part 107 license in the mail. And then Module 3, understanding weather effects. So in this module, the FAA's Part 107 exam will ask you questions about weather. Because let's face it, flying your drone in the air largely depends on the supporting weather in your area. In this module, we'll discuss some common weather phenomena, the different stages of a thunderstorm, and how to read cloud formations, which will give you an idea of whether it's safe to fly or not. Module number 4 is the National Airspace System. Basically, the airspace is broken down into 6 main airspace classifications. In this course, there's a chapter dedicated to each classifications and what type of activity typically happens within that class of airspace. You'll learn about Class G airspace, which is uncontrolled airspace, and where you're going to be spending the majority of time as a drone pilot. Module 5 is loading and performance. The Part 107 exam will test your knowledge of flying with a payload, weight and balance, and load factors that affect things like aerodynamics. You'll learn about topics that apply to both manned and unmanned aircrafts. This chapter discusses things like turns and maneuvers that will change weight being applied to your drone during a change in speed and direction. Module 6, airport operation. So, as a drone pilot, you'll need to understand the requirements necessary to fly within the vicinity of an airport. This chapter teaches you what's necessary to understand when planning your mission next to an airport, and depending on the airspace, what distance you'll need to maintain from the runway. Module 7 is on crew resource management. So if you're interested in building a team to help you complete missions as a full-time or even part-time drone pilot, you will need to understand what's called crew resource management. This is the physiology that makes up individuals on your team and how they might react if something goes wrong. In this course, we also have FAA practice exams. At the end of the course, there's going to be over 250 questions available for you to go through the 4 practice exams in this chapter. These exams include real questions and similar questions straight from the in-person FAA exam. This course has trained thousands of students to pass the exam with a 99% pass rate. The reason Altitude University has been able to consistently do that is from the support of our students who pass the exam and then provide feedback once they've gone through it. Our goal is to help you get certified in the most efficient way possible, which means the course has been consolidated to only include curriculum that's necessary to pass this exam. At the end of the course, there's also a chapter on scheduling your exam. The last module will walk you through the process of scheduling your exam with some last-minute tips and tricks for exam day. So with that in mind, who is Altitude University for? This course is for drone enthusiasts. If you've been involved with drones as a hobby or even followed the drone industry in the past and now you're looking to get more involved, this course will really help you get started. Second person it's for is the freelance cinematographer. If you're a freelance cinematographer or even a photographer for that matter, interested in leveraging drones as part of your camera arsenal, this is the first step to expanding how you capture moments for your current clients. And next, career professionals. If you're currently working full-time in an industry that's now adopting the use of drones, typically your boss, the companies, will pay for continuing education courses to separate their employees from the competition and learn how to utilize new technology. And lastly, looking for another revenue stream? Making money with drones is now easier than ever and has a very low barrier to entry if you're willing to put in the initial work. Average drone pilots make between $80,000 to $120,000 a year, completing jobs in industries like agricultural surveying, inspection, real estate photography, among others. Signing up for a test prep course will allow you to breeze through the studying in around 10 hours to prepare for the exam. I know the majority of you guys have put that amount of time into a test, a big project, or any other type of certification you hold. It's very worth it, and it's something I'm extremely familiar with. I'm going to be making an exclusive offer to the first 100 people that sign up for this course, and we'll be providing a one-time discount to anyone who's interested in signing up, so stick around until the end for that discount. Once you're licensed, you'll need to know some best practices for capturing stunning aerial photography and videography. There are so many tricks to capturing the perfect cinematic drone shot, and they all come down to the right camera settings. In the next step, it might help to grab your drone and break out the camera settings to follow along. Let's take a look. It's very important to calibrate your compass before taking off. The compass acts as a standard for understanding the position of your drone during flight, which means that if you have an inaccurate sensor measurement, you will be more likely to experience errors during your flight, which could potentially result in you losing your drone. So to calibrate, head over to your DJI app and go to the aircraft status bar, and then find the compass section. From there, click calibrate and follow the instructions. Once your drone is calibrated, all of your telemetry data like home and your takeoff location will be up to date. And while you're flying, the app will have accurate metrics like what height you're at and how far from the drone you are from where you're standing. Be sure to do this before each flight. If you were to purchase something like the DJI Mavic right out of the box, you're gonna need to head over and change some of those default settings. The first area we'll take a look at is the gimbal. Most drones come equipped with a 3-axis gimbal that will allow for nice smooth shots while you're flying. The only thing is, not everyone is shooting for those cinematic, slow-moving shots right out of the box like we are. So let's get that sensitivity dialed in. First, we have the gimbal pitch speed, which controls the speed at which the camera tilts. So when you see those nice revealing shots where the camera angle is facing straight down and then it reveals upwards, that's going to be controlled by how you move the wheel on your controller. You'll want to set this setting in your DJI Go app to 10. Next up, we have the gimbal pitch smoothness, which is the setting that controls how smoothly the camera will react after your shot when you take your finger off the dial. It's possible that you could be in the middle of a perfect shot, panning up to down, and then once you pass your subject on the ground, you want to fly away backwards and get a nice revealing shot of the landscape. Once you take your finger off of the dial, the gimbal tends to stop abruptly, which might mess up the conclusion of your shot. In this case, you'll want to set the gimbal pitch smoothness to about 20 to 25. If you want direct control over the movement of the gimbal and don't want the camera to tilt or move by itself during a shot, you'll want to go into those settings and switch synchronized gimbal pan follow to off. Next, we'll be talking about some intelligent flight modes and camera settings. These are typically the flight modes that in-person flight proficiency training instructors will teach you how to use in the DJI app. If these are concepts you're just hearing for the first time, be sure to take some notes and head to a local park after this to test out some of these new flight modes. I'll be using the Mavic 2 as an example because it's currently one of the most popular drones on the market and the drone I'm using to shoot at the moment. Let's hop in the DJI Go 4 app and break down the 3 flight modes you'll have access to. So first we have P mode, which is positioning. This is my favorite mode to get more creative shots as opposed to the slow cinematic shot. When your GPS signal is strong, it incorporates vision systems to locate itself, which means that it's able to stabilize better and navigate between obstacles because it has that strong GPS signal. But it's also using the camera and sensors to help you navigate while flying. In P mode, you'll have access to active track, hyperlapse, quick shots, waypoints, cinematic mode, and tap fly. We'll be going over each of these flight modes in a second, but after P mode, we have S mode, or in other words, sport mode. In sport mode, you're going to be able to fly your drone at its maximum speed. Besides being insanely fun, we've used this to film action sports like pro motocross racer Axel Hodges or professional surfer Jacob Zake. Keep in mind, the sticks are going to be extremely responsive, so use this mode wisely. Next, we have T mode, which is called tripod mode for a reason. It's very stable and it sets up to allow for smooth cinematic shots at relatively low speeds. All right, first one is active track, otherwise known as follow me mode. This is used when you're running, jumping, or even cycling. You'll select the person or object on the screen that you want it to track, and then it will adjust its flight path to follow the subject. I've used this to track people, bicycles, cars, and boats up to 45 miles an hour. Now, when you're following your subject, you have 3 options you can choose from. Trace mode, which tracks the subject at a consistent distance. You'll have spotlight mode, which doesn't automatically track the subject, but instead uses the drone as a spotlight to keep the camera kind of pointing in the general direction of while it's flying. And lastly, we have parallel mode, which tracks the subject at a consistent angle from the side. In P mode, the second flight mode on our list is hyperlapse, which allows you to easily create sped up videos using hundreds of pictures that are stitched together. To get started, you'll tap the controller icon on the left side of your screen, which will prompt you to choose one of the 4 hyperlapse modes. In each mode, you can set the intervals that it'll take a picture at between 2 and 15 seconds. In free mode, the drone will capture the photos for your hyperlapse freely, and you'll be able to adjust the altitude and the tilt of the camera if you'd like. In circle mode, this is one of the easier modes. It'll circle around a subject or a target to create a hyperlapse. In course lock, you'll lock in the drone camera on a specific object and then set the direction you'd like to approach the object, and it'll fly straight towards the subject, tilting down as it gets closer to the target. And waypoint mode, which will allow you to set up 5 different waypoints you'd like the drone to follow on its path while you're creating your cinematic hyperlapse. Next up at number 3 on our list of flight modes, we have quick shots. As the name suggests, you can use this flight mode to capture a wide variety of different creative shots. What these quick shots allow you to do is focus your time on capturing the perfect angle or perspective with the camera movement, while the drone essentially flies itself. First one on our list of 7 quick shots is the rocket, which ascends with the camera pointing down. Next, we have the droney, which is like the ultimate selfie. It will grab a video of you while flying back and upwards to reveal your location. We have circle. This oscillates around you while flying in a perfect circle, specifically around the subject. We have helix, which flies upwards while spiraling around the subject. Asteroid, this one flies backwards and upwards while taking several photos. We have the classic boomerang. This is a cool one. It flies backwards around you in an oval flight path, rising and descending. And lastly, we have the dolly zoom. This is the most common shot, and it's when the drone flies backwards and upwards and then adjusts the zoom to stay focused on just the subject while the background kind of changes. It's almost giving it a vertigo effect to the landscape. Number 4 on our list is waypoints, which is similar to what I explained with the construction monitoring, and it's most commonly used in an app called Drone Deploy. This is where you pre-program your drone to fly in a grid pattern, starting at the first waypoint and then making your way to the second, and then back and forth until you finish the flight. That back and forth flight where it hits each waypoint is how the drone creates the 3D maps and models. Next, we have cinematic mode, which extends the braking distance, and the rotation speed of your drone is reduced, which will create smooth movements. At the end of a shot in cinematic mode, your drone will slow down until it eventually comes to a stop, keeping the full shot stable with little to no jerking movement. And number 5, we have tap fly, which will really help you solidify your aerial filmmaking. Tap fly incorporates a forward, backwards, and free maneuver mode, which will allow you to tap the screen and send the drone in that general direction, allowing for movement while you focus on capturing the perfect shot. With those intelligent flight modes dialed in, now you're going to need to know what camera settings are best to capture the perfect shot. These are the camera settings I would recommend. I'll leave these on the screen for a second so you can take a screenshot if you'd like. So we're going to start with the shutter speed. Next we have white balance, we have the aperture, ISO, we have the image format for beginner pilots, and then we have the image format for advanced pilots. We have the video format, video size, and lastly we have the color. Now, it's one thing to pre-program your drone with these settings and another thing to actually have an understanding of some basic camera functions and how they're going to take your aerial photography to the next level. So your basic drone camera functions start with shutter speed, which is responsible for changing the brightness of your photo. It creates a dramatic effect by either freezing the action in place or blurring the motion to create that, dynamic effect. Essentially, it's the length of time that the camera shutter is open, meaning the time it takes for your drone's camera to snap a photo. A high shutter speed setting like 1/500th of a second means less light shining into the sensor, which will create a darker image, but will create a sharper captured object. So this setting allows photographers to freeze movement in a specific environment. The most common use case for a high shutter speed would be action sports photography, where the window to capture the object in a specific location may be extremely limited. A lower shutter speed setting like 1/4 means there's more light shining on the sensor, which will create a brighter image and a blurrier captured object. So, for example, the environment could be darker and you need to let in more light to the camera, or you want to introduce some blur into the image. This allows photographers to emphasize objects like cars or crisp captures of people that are moving, while allowing for the background to be blurred. As you'll recall, I'd recommend the shutter speed at about 1/50th of a second. Let's move on to aperture. So, aperture controls the amount of light being let into the lens. A large aperture setting like f2 means a larger amount of light is being let in, allowing for a brighter image and a soft, very out of focus background. This effect allows for objects to be captured in detail with that blurred background. A smaller aperture setting like f16 means a smaller amount of light is being let in, allowing for a darker image. It's going to have a broad focal plane and an in-focus background. This effect allows for objects to be captured in detail where the background of the image is very clear. For now, you're going to want to have your aperture setting around 5.6 to around 9. Next, we have ISO, which is the sensitivity towards light. So a high ISO is meaning that there's more light being detected in the sensor, and it'll allow for a brighter image and more visual distortion. Some common use cases for a high ISO would be a low light scene, like concerts, festivals, and night photography, or if you're capturing a fast movement in a dull or indoor condition. So a low ISO, when you have a low ISO, it's going to be less light being detected in the sensor, which allows for a darker image with added clarity. Some common use cases for low ISO would be outdoor subjects in sunlight, landscapes or indoor static subjects, potentially using a tripod, and you're going to want to use it when maximum image quality is required. And as you can probably guess, middle ISO is going to be halfway between the two and would be used for dull weather scenes, capturing movement in good lighting conditions, or a handheld candid shot. My recommendation, if possible, keep your ISO around 100 to keep the noise to a minimum. Next, we have your image format, which is essentially how your images will be stored on that SD card once you've captured them. So you'll want to decide between using RAW or JPEG. So JPEG images are small file sizes that allow for a little bit less flexibility in post-production. RAW images are going to be those larger file type sizes and usually need to be opened with a professional editing software, allowing for more flexibility on the back end. And lastly, we have some image format advanced options. These are very important options and can be used to really separate yourself from the competition. So as we mentioned, the AEB bracketing is very important. Auto exposure bracketing allows your camera settings to capture either 3 or 5 photos at the same time, allowing for that underexposed, the regular, and then the overexposed, and you're going to be able to edit that in a software like Photoshop with more flexibility to filter the light. High dynamic range, or HDR, similarly, is a mode that allows for 3 images to be captured at different exposures, with most of the detail in being the bright and dark areas that'll be merged together and edited in a professional editing software. So now that you have an understanding of basic camera functions and settings that you can leverage in your work, keep in mind you only have to do this once. From there, it's up to you to practice your flight proficiency techniques, and I'll even get into some top cinematic drone movements next. But first, I've decided to throw in some bonus tips and tricks for stunning aerial photography. Here are the tips and tricks for stunning aerial photography. First, capture aerial photos in RAW format. Second, check weather forecasts and use the DJI No-Fly Zone website to ensure that you're safe to fly before your photography session. Pack an extra spare set of batteries, some SD cards, and propellers in your drone case in case anything happens. Use the rule of thirds to improve composition and balance in your photography. Use neutral density or ND filters when shooting, and always use insurance. I always use droneinsurance.com for all of my commercial shoots. Use AEB bracketing and merge your photos in post-production like we were talking about. and shoot in aspect ratios 3:2, 4:3, and 16:9. Always fly within visual line of sight, and the last tip, learn to catch land your drone if possible from the air. So next up we have my top cinematic drone movements with descriptions. Let's kick off this list with number 1, the object pullout. So this is going to be when you're focused on a subject and keep the focal point on the individual, but pull out and reveal the background. Number 2, we have the object push in, which is completely the opposite. So maybe you're in an incredible location and you're flying nice and steady while moving towards your subject slowly, blocking out the rest of the frame's background until the focal point is directly on your subject. We have the side or lateral movement. So with this, you're going to get a great shot where you're parallel with your subject, moving in the same direction side by side with consistent lateral movement. This one's one of my favorite. It's called the orbit, which is great for showing a property or a building because it'll focus on a 360-degree movement and also hints at the views in the background from time to time. We have the tilt reveal, which is a bottom to top reveal. So typically a revealing shot where you're flying with the camera facing down, maybe over the ocean or a river, with a slight reflection, and then you pan the camera upward to reveal the horizon. Next up, we have panning left to right. So although these are active camera movements and they're nice and creative, you can never go wrong with a hovering drone shot, getting that nice left to right panning shot and vice versa. Next up, we have the tracking shot. This is either forwards or backwards, and it's going to be a straight on forwards and backwards movement where you're flying just a few feet in front of the moving object or behind the moving object, flying in a consistent direction with distance between you and your subject. And we have the top down or the overhead shot. This is a great shot where your drone is facing straight down and you capture movement in any direction without a horizon. It kind of gives a suspenseful look and makes the audience guess what the landscape looks like. Moving on, we have the flying straight up twist. So this is going to be a top-down shot, but instead you're going to be slowly rotating your drone in a twisting movement while you ascend directly upwards over the subject. And lastly, the shot that's been creating the most hype in the industry, the dolly zoom, or that vertigo effect. So there you have it, my tips to creating the perfect shot using camera settings and advanced drone movements that'll take you from looking like a beginner pilot to an actual filmmaker. Knowing this stuff simply isn't enough though. Like anything, you need to get outside and implement the things I've just shared with you. These next steps in our list are going to focus more on the business side of things. So I can't cover all of these in depth in this webinar, but I'll go over each step so you're confident in the process. These are some recommendations with a focus on the real estate industry that I've used for my business and have students using that are currently making 6 figures flying drones as professional pilots and full-time business owners. So let's get started with the market. Chances are you're aware of the need for drones in real estate, and beyond that, you know that as a beginner to intermediate drone pilot, there is a potential for someone like yourself to create a profitable drone business in this industry. With any business, however, you need to do some initial market research to quantify how profitable the industry is and where there's a need for your services. The reason I've chosen the real estate industry is because along with the low barrier to entry for drone pilots to make money, it serves as a great starting point for you to develop your craft and create close relationships with your clients where you can continue to understand the value you're providing to their business. The next step is understanding your why. Imagine a lifestyle where you wake up in the morning inspired to go to work and come home every single day fulfilled by the work you do. To reinforce this, I've actually put together 3 quick market statistics that show you the impact that this drone technology has on your client's business. The National Association of Realtors states that 73% of homeowners say that they're more likely to list with an agent that uses drone photography and video. RIS Media says that homes sell 68% faster with aerial images on the listing. And lastly, Zillow Premier agents use aerial real estate photography to show potential buyers a variety of details, including, and this is straight from them on the value they see in drones, encompassing aerial views of the entire property and the land, revealing the condition of the roof and other property features that can be difficult to assess, what the drive home or the kids' walk to school looks like, the neighborhood and the surrounding area, including the home's proximity to amenities, the civic developments or local improvements that the district are supported by the buyer's property taxes, and property maps and surveys. Again, it's important that you do your own continued research about the market in your specific location. So now that you know there's a need, I'm going to be giving you a brief rundown of something that every licensed real estate agent has in the United States. It's called the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS. So what is the MLS and how does it benefit agents? The MLS is a listing service that acts as a database and provides data about properties for sale. The MLS allows brokers to see one another's listings or properties that are for sale with the goal of connecting home buyers to sellers. So both the listing and the selling agent benefit from the sharing of this property information. So real estate agents and brokers basically pay a membership fee for access to this service. In return, they receive information about homes in the area, including, and this is where we come in, photos and descriptions of the property, its amenities and square footage. So to be clear, drone photography can reveal important features such as the pool, the backyard, an ocean or a mountain view, and nearby lakes. For real estate agents or brokers, it's in their best interest to set their MLS listing photo as an aerial image so that the potential homeowner can use this as a tool when moving to a new city, buying a second home, or trying to streamline the research process necessary to buy a home. That being said, I want to transition here to some personal advice to you. Don't overthink your business. We've seen that there's a clear need in the market for you to start a drone business, specifically in this industry, so don't overcomplicate it. Consistency is key here, and you will grow your business, clients, and services with time. I see way too many entrepreneurs and business owners that have all these ideas on how they can build the biggest drone services business, offering tons of different services with upsells and cross-sells and all of that. They think that having the highest price point in the market will attract the biggest deals and the biggest houses where they can charge the most amount of money, and that's not true. Every deal counts, and with fair pricing, you'll start to attract bigger deals where you can start to charge more money once you've shown the quality of your work. Another thing, don't be afraid to do something for free. Offer one service really well and be the best at it. Start with just aerial photography and leave out video for now. Build a relationship with your clients and then start to offer more services to them upon their request. Once you've worked with them for a while, you can explain that you're thinking of adding some new services, and they'll be way more willing to work with you on timing and exploration if you've provided consistent quality work for an extended period of time. Next, we have target demographics. So you'll need to identify a target audience, which is the most crucial element to your business. And business owners who learn to identify a target clientele stand a way better chance of convincing others to support them. You need a clear focus, and just assuming your customers will come from all segments of the real estate industry is not enough to support your business. Let's dial in a clear focus. So there are three potential demographics in this industry. We have residential real estate, we have commercial real estate, and then we have real estate investors and developers. Since we'll be talking about residential real estate agents primarily, let's walk through their thought process and develop a strategy. So there are typically 4 steps that a residential real estate agent will consider before hiring a drone company. First, they'll need to know that you hold an FAA Part 107 license, which you'll need to show the agent prior to the shoot date. They'll need to ensure that all drones being used to shoot the property are insured with the proper coverage needed for commercial flying. Keep in mind, these agents are guests on the property, and having a third party come in like us is considered a liability. There are plenty of low-cost, on-demand insurance apps built specifically for drone pilots. Having drone insurance will also prove to the agent that you're serious about your business. And third, if you pass those first two qualifications, then they'll typically move forward and request a portfolio of your past work. This will also allow them to make a judgment call when it comes down to pricing, since they've seen the quality of your work. And four, make sure as a company that you're verifying the location and can legally fly in the proposed area of the property. This is a huge part of the process and can kind of make or break a deal. Flying in a no-fly zone is illegal. No-fly zones are geographical locations that you won't be able to operate your aircraft in, you won't even be able to take off in. It could range from your close proximity to an airport or just an area that's kind of controlled by the airspace. You'll need to be able to do this research prior to the flight, and it's super simple. What you'll do is request the address of the property from the agent and enter it into the DJI's FlySafe GeoZone map. It's the no-fly zone. It basically delineates where it's safe to fly and where it may raise concerns in restricted airspace. And once you've double checked it does not fall into the category of one of those restricted areas, then you can confirm the location and move forward with the project. So speaking of protecting yourself and your business, my next tip will be the last step in making your business official. And that's deciding whether or not you're gonna start an LLC or a sole proprietorship. I'm not gonna dive into the legal framework. However, I will give you the pros and cons of both. If you're thinking of starting a drone business with a partner and you have some startup capital to get the ball rolling, then you'll want to look into an LLC or limited liability company, which does just that. It actually limits the liability if anything happens. For example, if someone's trying to sue you, the LLC will separate your personal assets like your home and your car from the business assets, treating both as separate entities. It will also allow you to establish an EIN number, which you'll need to start a business bank account and to organize your business finances and optimize your taxes. As a sole proprietor, it will be cheaper to set up at first, but you will be personally liable for your business debts and any liabilities, so you may want to consider operating as an LLC for better protection. But again, do your own research to determine what's best for you. You can set up an LLC or a sole proprietorship through something like LegalZoom. After you get your business set up, you'll need a logo and some business cards. So I'll quickly review what I've found to be the best process for getting a logo designed and business cards made. Now, there's a lot of controversy over paying for a logo and having someone else design your business cards at this early stage of business. But here's what I think. If you're going all in with this business, I'm gonna give you the most cost-effective way to ensure the highest quality without wasting time or money. And this is one of my strategies. You'll need two logo styles. The first one is gonna be a type logo, which is basically a word. The second one is a symbol logo, which is a symbol or a graphic or a picture. Make sure it looks good in a 1x1 square for Instagram. So with that in mind, I had my logo work done through 99 Designs. The process is very simple and you're only gonna wanna do this once for your business. It's a global creative platform for custom graphic design work like logos, and it's pretty cool how it works. Basically, you create a simple brief to help the designers understand what you need. Then it starts a contest for all the designers on the platform. Everyone takes a look at the brief that you wrote out that talks about the style, the colors, and your ideas for the logo, and then they all get started designing. We received over 250 logo submissions, and then you choose the ones that you like, tell the designers your feedback, what you like, what you don't like about the submissions, and then they go back, keep designing until you narrow it down to the perfect one. At the end, you receive full copyright and production files. The cheaper option would be to find a logo designer on Fiverr. If you're not familiar with Fiverr, it's basically a marketplace where you can find professional freelancers to hire on a project basis. Next, once you get your logo designs, you can order some business cards. Now, I'd recommend using Vistaprint as a low-cost option. And lastly, for all design work moving forward for you, be sure to use Canva. This is gonna make your life so much easier and will allow you to quickly put together graphics and content necessary for your website, any pricing sheets, brochures, ebooks, and even some basic invoices. So there you have it, 99design, Fiverr, Vistaprint, and Canva, the best resources for you at this stage in business. My next recommendation and step number 7 of this guide is join a pilot network while you're doing the busy work of starting your own business. So there are companies in the drone industry that offer complete drone solutions by connecting clients with qualified drone pilots like you. This is a guaranteed way to ensure you make money completing drone missions given to you that are in your area. So while you're building your drone business and your clientele, it's great to receive these notifications in the background to make some extra money. The way it works is these companies close deals with clients in a variety of different industries, and then they match those missions to drone pilots in a certain area. The companies hiring drone pilots through these networks are typically household names in real estate, insurance, and the construction industry. The process is very simple and can be broken down into 4 steps. First, you're going to review the mission that's sent to you through the Pilot Network mobile app. You'll look at the location, the due date, scope of project, and the going rate for compensation. Then next, number 2, you're going to schedule the mission and book the date to ensure you'll be there at the correct time. Number 3, you'll fly the mission, capture the aerial imagery, and then head back home, upload the images to the pilot dashboard, and then the Pilot Network will actually review your work and then take care of any final editing. Lastly, you get paid. It's that simple. Once you've signed up, they will require you to provide your Part 107 drone pilot license number. And then you'll fill out a short questionnaire to complete your pilot profile, and from there, the sky's the limit. So when you're growing your drone business, drone insurance is one of the most important assets to a drone pilot. Insurance can be tricky, so let me quickly break it down for you. There's base coverage and liability coverage. The base coverage is something you can use when your drone is not in the air. This will typically cover the repair or replacement of your drone if it's damaged or stolen. Liability coverage is going to be necessary when flying to protect yourself and your client. And what that means is for all commercial missions or projects, you should sign up for what's called on-demand liability coverage, which will protect your business and your hardware during a mission. On-demand paperless coverage will allow you to show up at your job site, open up the app, and schedule liability insurance for your specific time period. I typically purchase the policy for 1 hour prior to the project and then keep it running for 1 hour after I've landed. It'll send you a policy document that you can show or email to your client, and then you're ready to take off confident that if anything happens, you are covered. Step number 9, pricing your drone services. So this next part is different for everyone based on location, on experience, and demand for these types of services. But something that does stay the same across the board is that you get paid based on the value you bring to the marketplace. Do not, and this is the biggest mistake I see drone pilots make, do not overprice yourself before you've even started. The most successful drone pilots I've worked with understand that starting any business is a process, and you have to believe in the process. So what does that even mean? Start small and provide one service really well, and I mean really well. Don't write out 50 different services you could provide and charge an outrageous price for each of them. As a licensed drone pilot, your value is there, so price your services accordingly and do consistent work to prove yourself to your clients. Here's the breakdown. Assuming you're starting your drone business in real estate, start with one service like aerial photography. That means aerial photography, not exterior, interior, lifestyle, Steadicam, time-lapse. Just start with aerial photography and put together a package as follows. 15 to 30 aerial drone shots of the property, community, with a focus on highlights or any amenities. Get a shot from the front of the house, the side of the house, the driveway, the backyard, a top down of the house, and a high up shot of its location, and charge $275 to $350 for your time on site with a quick turnaround to deliver the photos. Once you've established your services, you can start to incorporate video, other types of marketing, and charge between $750 all the way up to $2,000 for full lifestyle videos. So once you've priced your services accordingly, it brings us to our next recommendation on the list, which is build a portfolio. You need to showcase your work on a website or social media platform that's easily accessible for your clients to view. This will give your clients a certain level of confidence in your ability to capture what they have in mind. You need to showcase your work on a website or social media platform that's easily accessible for clients to view. This will give your clients a certain level of confidence in your ability to capture what they have in mind. If you show them your work and they still aren't willing to pay that amount, don't undercut yourself. Just go back and practice on mastering your skills. Next, we have the most controversial skill set that drone pilots think they need to spend thousands of dollars mastering before they start their business, which is editing. Some people find this as the hardest piece of the puzzle to figure out, and if you're not a Photoshop guru, most pilots get really discouraged before they even start. So here's my advice. You do not need to spend what takes some people years to become a proficient editor. I would recommend using a service that I've kept a secret up until today. It's called Box Brownie. It's an on-demand photo editing service that is extremely underrated. Upload your photos to their site, and within 24 hours, they'll have professional edited pictures delivered to you in the highest quality for a super affordable cost. So there you have it, my top 10 tips and tricks to making money flying drones. Hopefully you found these recommendations helpful, and what you'll realize is it all comes down to getting started. These are the best practices I used to make around $10,000 in my first year while in high school, to then scaling up my services, offerings, and prices to over 6 figures a year flying drones for some of the top real estate agents in Southern California. So now I want to dive into Altitude University to give you an idea of what the full program includes for anyone that's interested in taking the next step in getting their drone license. Again, the first step to starting a drone business or being able to accept your first check from flying drones is your FAA Part 107 license. So as far as what you'll receive when you purchase the online Part 107 test prep course, I've divided the course into 8 course modules. They have chapter quizzes, live tutorial sessions, flashcards, practice exams, and access to a private Facebook group. So the curriculum is self-paced, by the way. Each chapter comes with a video lecture that you can watch with the corresponding text information right below the video for those of you that like to read along while going through the material. At the end of each chapter, we've included quizzes and flashcards that you can use to test yourself on the information and go back on previous sections to review. And the mobile app. I know a lot of you commute to work or are students, so if you're interested in watching on the go, you'll be able to access the chapter videos on a desktop, tablet, or even a mobile device through our mobile app. So without further ado, we finally get to the price of the full test prep course. As promised, I'll be offering an exclusive discount for those that have hung around until the end of this training. So as valued by our current members, this online Part 107 test prep course is worth well over the thousands of dollars you'd pay for a seminar. But you won't pay that. I currently have the course priced at $199. But as an even better offer, in the next 10 minutes you'll get an additional 35% off by clicking on the link that I will provide here in a second. Once you click the link, it'll take you to a custom discount page. Click the buy button, set up an account with your email and password, and then you'll see the 35% off discount already factored in. So the offer is live now and is good to go for the next 10 minutes, so here we go. In the meantime, I'll be sharing some testimonials I've received from students who have completed the course and received their license. So here's an example of one of our members who's actually starting his own drone business. He said, "We're starting a new drone advertising business, Universal Drone Advertising LLC. We'll be established in Poplar Bluff, Montana, and we look forward to having the safest and professional pilots. We'll be flying the incredible DJI Mavic 2 Pro. Thank you to the Altitude University team for their outstanding class instructions that have helped our pilots pass the FAA Part 107 exam. Thanks, David." Another member who was just learning from YouTube before she joined the course and knew nothing about drones prior to this test prep course says, "Easy to follow, engaging, the correct content. I know nothing about this and was able to pass first time. I would recommend this course to anyone looking for the FAA 107 Unmanned Aircraft Test for your remote pilot certification. That's Jennifer. I highly recommend Altitude University. I passed my exam on the first try with a 97%. This was a refresher training for me as a pilot in the military about 20 years ago. So, however, they covered all the necessary topics for the exam. Using this online course along with some good study habits, you'll pass your test on the first try with no problem. Thanks, Jim. And many more 5-star reviews. So I highly recommend Altitude University. It was the only resource I used preparing for the exam, and I passed with over a 90%. I felt prepared and was able to complete the exam with tons of extra time left over. The best thing about this program is that it allows you to go back at your own pace, go back on previous topics for review, and the videos were clear, concise, and made it easy to understand complex topics. 10 out of 10, thanks Corey. Thank you for the ad. Took my test after doing Altitude University lessons and passed on my first try with an 82%. Just took the test last Friday. Thank you for giving me the training I need to go in and nail that test. I hope that I continue to learn from this group and also hope to give valuable input. You definitely are. Thanks, Dio. Awesome course, and would recommend to any RC drone pilot to get the proper knowledge of the FAA rules and regulations. I took the test this morning and passed no problem after 2 weeks of course material and some studying. Next one we have here, this course is very informational. I went into it knowing very little about drones, similar to a lot of you guys, I'm sure. I breezed right through the course, and within about a week, I received my Part 107 certificate. Highly recommend Altitude University. Thank you, Amber. So there's the offer. We only have 100 coupon codes available at this discounted price. It's first come, first serve. So if you're thinking about joining, now would be the best time to do so. And while that offer is ticking, I will answer a couple questions I get asked in our remaining time here during this webinar. So feel free to ask questions in the chat box right now. I may answer your question right now, or I may answer it in the chat box, so pay attention to both. First question, what is the success rate of people who join Altitude University? So our current success rate for passing the Part 107 exam is around a 99% pass rate. If you've received an 80% or higher on our practice exams, we've structured them to actually be very difficult. So if you've passed those with an 80%, it's not going to be any more difficult come exam day. So by the way, a quick heads up, our time is almost up for the 35% off discount, so hurry and get signed up if you want to take advantage of this webinar offer only. If you're having any payment issues, please email me. You can reach me at info@sdaltitude, and I'll make sure we get you taken care of. Next question here. If I have specific questions, would I be able to email you those questions? Yes, absolutely. Any questions you have, you will have my personal email address that you can send me questions. I'll usually respond within a day or two. That's the difference between our team and other educational platforms out there. It's extremely helpful when you can reach out to someone like myself or my team, to a practicing professional, and ask a specific question to dial in your business. Next question, is the real estate market too saturated? Guys, there's always a need for drone services, and it's up to you to craft a list of services that fit with the client's needs and their price point. Next question, I understand the benefit of aerial photography and videography for marketing purposes, but is there anything else I can use my drone for? Yes, of course. Again, I only went through some of the most frequently used cases due to limited time. However, there are a few more. I'll include them right now. Documentation, appraisal of properties for real estate, roof inspection for real estate, defining property boundaries, and if necessary, any master planning. Speaking of questions, hopefully I've answered most of your questions in this training. If I didn't cover some of your questions, feel free to email me at info@sdaltitude.com, and I'll try to get around to those as soon as I can. Also, if you have any other questions or doubt about whether this program is right for you, shoot me an email. I am super accessible. Let's chat about your situation and we'll see what we can do. But our offer has to officially end, so procrastinators or people having payment issues, hit me up at info@sdaltitude.com if you still want to get that discounted price, and we'll get you taken care of. Other than that, I'm out. Thanks for tuning in. That's it, and Thanks for stopping by. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you soon. We'll see you in the sky.